All right, a very brief review of subject-verb agreement. And of course, if you need a more complete review, then just review the bigger videos that I have, the one on subject-verb agreement that I have. But let's just do a brief review here. So, okay, subject-verb agreement is basically saying that when you have a sentence, your verb must agree with its subject in terms of singularity or plurality. Both need to be singular. Right? Both the subject and the plural need to be singular, or both the subject and the verb need to be plural. Both, right? Okay, so that gets a little tricky when you have words in between the subject. All right, subject, and then you have a phrase or something, and then a verb. So, or a clause even. So we just, you might remember that we have sometimes clauses interrupt, like a subordinate clause that starts with a relative pronoun might interrupt the main clause or the independent clause. But it's probably easier to say with phrase. But anyway, phrase or a clause might interrupt the subject and the verb. So you can't let anything in the phrase or the clause confuse you with these two agreeing. And of course, if it is a clause, the subject and the verb in that clause need to agree as well. Also, sometimes when there's more than one subject, like a compound subject. So if it's a compound subject, you've got to remember that if it's "and" in between the two subjects, then that's definitely a plural. If it's "or," it's the subject is singular if this one closest to the verb, if this word closest to the verb is singular, the subject closest to the verb is singular. Or if the subject closest to the verb is plural, then the verb needs to be plural in that case. So if you have two things, even though there's two things, it's one or the other, but the rule is the last one closest to the verb decides whether it's that compound subject is singular or plural. Sometimes you have verbs before the subject, but not very often. Usually we have a subject before the verb, right? But in some cases, like many questions, or words that, sentences that start with here or there. Here or there can never be the subject, so it's verb before subject when you say, here is the answer. The answer is the subject. The answer is here, is another way to say that. But here and there are adverbs, so those can never be the subject. When we have another thing is to be concerned with, is a collective noun. Collective nouns are, well, when it's a collective noun, most of the time it's singular, like water and money. But sometimes when you have a collective noun, if you're concerned with the individual, the group working as a single unit, they're singular. But if they're plural when they refer to the individual actions or feelings of the group members. So if you're talking about all of the quartet is a collective noun, right? But if the string quartet is getting their new instruments on Monday, well, each of them are getting a different instrument, and they're all different. They're not all the same. They're not all, all cellos, and they're not all any one instrument. So they're all different. So it's plural because there are all so many different things going on, right? But if you're just saying this string quartet will perform on Monday, that's as a unit. It's one thing. They're all performing in one performance, so it's singular in that case. All right, sorry I didn't write anything down there, but it's just I'm trying to do a quick review. So if any of this doesn't make sense, again, check out the more full videos. Also, let's go back to compound subjects for a moment, because some compound subjects that are plural or seem to be plural, it's macaroni and cheese, right? For example, that looks plural because you have the and in between the two subjects, but it's singular because really this is one item. You get a box of macaroni and cheese and you have macaroni and cheese, and it's like a snack that goes together. So, you know, like cheese and crackers, they go together. Some people like peanut butter and celery, they go together. So those are all singular. But when you say Tuesday and Thursday, those are completely different days that don't go together. Right? So those would be plural when you say Tuesday and Thursday. All right. So anyhow, let's see. I think we've also got issues with indefinite pronouns when you're worried about subject-verb agreement. So, in fact, I would say definitely check out the video on that if you're not clear on that, because there's some, you know, some are always singular, like another is always singular. And both is always plural. And there's a whole bunch that are always singular and a whole bunch that are always plural. But there's a few that are sometimes singular or plural. Like all can be singular and it can be plural. But when you use that, and when that's used in a sentence, there's a prepositional phrase that will follow. All of the money. All right, so now all is the pronoun, it's the subject, but money determines whether it's singular or plural. Money is a collective noun that is singular, so that would make the verb need to be singular. All of the money is mine. Okay, for example. And that's it for your quick review on subject-verb agreement.